What if I told you that beneath the shimmering waves of the Indian Ocean, there lies a submerged city that just might be a legendary kingdom mentioned in an ancient epic? Yes, we're going on a deep dive into the story of Dwarka, a city described in the Mahabharata, one of the major Sanskrit epics of ancient India. This isn't just an exploration of myth and legend, but also a journey through the fascinating realms of underwater archaeology and radiocarbon dating. So let's plunge into the depths and discover the captivating saga of Dwarka. Dwarka is more than just a name. It's a word that translates to the gateway to heaven. According to Hindu mythology, this majestic city was established by none other than Lord Krishna, a deity worshipped as the 8th avatar of Lord Vishnu. Now, who is Krishna, you might ask? Krishna, a central figure in Hinduism, is widely revered for his wisdom, his strategic prowess, his supernatural feats, and his role as a charioteer, advisor, and friend to Prince Arjuna in the epic Mahabharata. In this ancient text, Krishna flees to the western coast of India after a catastrophic war. Here he establishes the city of Dwarka, a city so opulent and grand that it's often described as a city made of gold. But as stories go, this magnificent city meets a tragic end. After Krishna's death, a series of calamities strike. Submerged by the sea in a matter of days, the city disappears, taking all its architectural grandeur and wealth along with it. The tale of Dwarka is fascinating in its own right, but here's where it gets even more interesting. This myth aligns with a geological phenomenon known as sea level rise, which could result in the submergence of coastal settlements. So this begs the question, is Dwarka just a symbolic tale, or could it be an actual historical event dressed in myth and legend? The archaeology unit of the National Institute of Oceanography is making headlines. The team is embarking on an underwater archaeological expedition to see what lies beneath the sea at Dwarka, on the western coast of India. Led by archaeologists S.R. Rao and S. Gaur, the team discovers something that shakes up the world of archaeology: structural remains and artifacts suggesting the existence of an ancient city. The expedition reveals well-planned stone structures, pottery shards, semi-precious stones, and inscriptions, some of which date back to the Harappan civilization around 2000 BCE. The discoveries don't stop there. Subsequent underwater explorations reveal an extensive network of stone structures, extending over half a mile, which appears to have been built on the bank of an ancient river, the Gomati. The stone structures, ceramics, and inscriptions lend credibility to the existence of a bustling urban center in antiquity. It's an intriguing find, right? But there's a twist. The artifacts and structures found underwater not only suggest the existence of an ancient city, but also hint at a city that may have been submerged by rising sea levels, aligning strikingly with the legend of Dwarka. Could it be that the legend of Dwarka was not merely a legend, but a page out of our own historical past preserved in mythology? So we have established that there's something under the sea at Dwarka, but what exactly did the explorers find? Well, the discoveries at Dwarka were nothing short of astonishing. Firstly, pottery shards were found in abundance. These pieces of ancient ceramics were from a variety of different eras, some of them dating back to the late Harappan period. The variety in pottery styles suggests that Dwarka was inhabited over an extensive period of time, housing several generations of people. Then there were the semi-precious stones. These materials, often used for making jewelry, speak volumes about the economic prosperity of the city. The presence of such materials suggests that Dwarka was a trade center, exchanging goods with different parts of the ancient world. Next, there were the inscriptions. The most important of these was a seal that bore the image of a three-headed animal. The symbolism behind this creature remains a mystery, but the very fact that the inhabitants of Dwarka had a complex system of symbols suggests a sophisticated society. And then, of course, there were the architectural remains. Stone structures of various shapes and sizes were found, giving archaeologists a glimpse into the layout of the city. Among these structures, a series of circular fort-like constructions, believed to be part of the city's defense system, were particularly remarkable. Taken together, these discoveries form a remarkable narrative of an ancient city that was, in its time, a hub of civilization and commerce. And this narrative, much to our astonishment, aligns remarkably well with the mythical city of Dwarka described in the Mahabharata. In a world where we want hard facts, the science of radiocarbon dating can act as our time machine, providing an objective lens through which to view the past. And it was this scientific tool that was used to try and pinpoint the age of the submerged city of Dwarka. Radiocarbon dating works by estimating the age of organic materials, which include ancient artifacts and biological specimens. It's based on the principle that all living things contain carbon, some of which is radioactive C14. When a creature or plant dies, it stops absorbing this radioactive carbon, but the C14 it already contains continues to decay. By measuring the remaining quantity of C14, scientists can estimate how long ago the organism died, or in our case, when the artifacts were last used or made. Applying this technique, pieces of wood from Dwarka were sent to laboratories where they were analyzed for radiocarbon content. The results: the wood samples were found to date back to around 7,500 years ago, vastly predating the expected timeline of Mahabharata, according to most historians. This significant revelation opened up a Pandora's box of questions. Could the submerged city really be the mythical Dwarka? If so, does it mean that our timeline of the Mahabharata is off? Or does it suggest that the city was inhabited long before Krishna supposedly ruled there, and the epic merely borrowed the location's rich history? The radiocarbon dating results were a fascinating discovery, adding a new layer of complexity to the mystery of Dwarka. It reminds us that the lines between history, archaeology, and mythology can blur, leaving us to ponder on the intersection of fact and fiction. How does radiocarbon dating work? Let's step back from the Dwarka and elaborate a little more on this interesting way to measure age. Alright, so imagine you're watching a video on YouTube. When the video starts, it's fully loaded, right? Now let's say you pause the video and go grab a snack. When you come back, you notice that the video has unloaded a bit. It's been buffering and you can't play it right away. That's a bit like how radiocarbon dating works. But instead of a video, we're talking about a kind of stuff called carbon-14. You see, everything that was once alive, like a tree, a dinosaur, or a woolly mammoth, absorbed a type of carbon called carbon-14 when they were living. Once they die, they stop taking in new carbon-14. But here's the cool part. Carbon-14 is a little bit like a slowly buffering YouTube video. Over time, it changes or decays into another kind of stuff called nitrogen-14. Scientists call the time it takes for half of the carbon-14 to change into nitrogen-14 its half-life. Kind of like if half your video had to buffer before you could watch it. For carbon-14, this half-life is about 5,730 years. Now let's say we find a really old piece of wood and we want to know when the tree it came from stopped living. We can't ask the tree, obviously, but we can use a special tool to measure how much carbon-14 is still in the wood compared to how much carbon-12, a type of carbon that doesn't change over time, is in it. If there's a lot of carbon-14 left, the tree probably hasn't been dead very long, but if there's only a little carbon-14 left, that means the tree has been dead for a very long time, and that's pretty much how radiocarbon dating works. Scientists use this method to tell how old things are that used to be alive, from ancient wooden tools to prehistoric animal bones. It's like a time machine that helps us uncover the secrets of the past. The discussion surrounding the ancient city of Dwarka isn't without its skeptics. These are the people who question the conclusions that have been drawn from the archaeological evidence, and their doubts are an important part of the scientific process. One of the main areas of skepticism revolves around the age of the underwater city. Critics point out that while certain samples tested using radiocarbon dating suggest an older date, this doesn't necessarily confirm that the city itself is of the same age. In other words, older organic material could have been incorporated into a younger settlement. Skeptics also point to the complexity and size of the structures that have been found underwater. They argue that these structures are far more sophisticated than what is typically associated with other sites from the same period. Some even suggest that the underwater ruins could be the remnants of a much more recent settlement, potentially even dating to medieval times. Then there's the question of the city's connection to the ancient epic, the Mahabharata. Skeptics argue that just because a city is found where the mythical Dwarka is said to have been, doesn't mean it's the same city. After all, there could have been multiple settlements in the area over the thousands of years of human history. Finally, skeptics argue that more research needs to be done. The underwater site is extensive, and only a small portion has been thoroughly investigated. Until more of the city is explored and more artifacts are found and tested, skeptics caution against drawing firm conclusions about the site's age and cultural significance. But where does that leave us? A submerged city, radiocarbon dates that point to immense antiquity, and a saga that may or may not be the echoes of a distant past. The quest for understanding Dwarka is a testament to the human spirit's insatiable curiosity, bridging the gap between myth and science. So the next time you gaze at the vast expanse of the ocean, remember that beneath its surface may lie stories waiting to be discovered. But as always, the journey towards knowledge is as fascinating as the destination itself. What if I told you that beneath the sprawling modern cityscapes and the timeless deserts, there's another world lurking? A world that thrived when mammoths still roamed and the Sahara was lush with vegetation. It's a world where colossal structures and cities, thought to be younger, were in fact the creations of civilizations lost to us in the mists of prehistory. Today, we're diving deep into the world of submerged cities, signs of catastrophic floods, the ancient Egyptian civilization, and their monuments like the Sphinx and the pyramids. So, let's embark on this journey through time, unlocking secrets hidden beneath waves and sand dunes. Let's now journey south, along the lifeline of one of the world's greatest civilizations, the Nile. Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, was home to bustling metropolises, temples and cities that are now covered by the waters of the Nile and the Mediterranean. Two of these cities, Thonis-Heracleion and Canopus, were found submerged under Aboukir Bay near Alexandria in the late 20th century. Thonis-Heracleion, once a prosperous port city, was lost to the world around 1200 years ago. As to what led to its submergence, it's believed that a combination of rising sea levels, land subsidence, and possibly a catastrophic event like an earthquake led to its sinking. Imagine walking down the streets of this city, once populated by thousands, now silent except for the occasional sound of aquatic life. The city was discovered in 2000 by a team led by French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudiot. They found the ruins spread over 11 kilometers, including 64 ships, 700 anchors, gold coins, weights from Athens, which have never before been found at an Egyptian site, statues standing 16 feet tall, and most notably the remains of a massive temple to the god Amun-Gareb. In its glory days, Thonis-Heracleion was Egypt's main international trading post, receiving goods from Greece, the Middle East, and other parts of Africa. Nearby, the city of Canopus was also rediscovered, a center for the worship of the god Serapis. The city was known for its temples and pilgrimage sites, attracting people from all corners of the ancient world. The treasures recovered from the site include a perfectly preserved bust of a Ptolemaic queen, grand statues of gods and goddesses, and intricate amulets. Now, let's head over to the iconic Giza Plateau, the site of the Great Sphinx and the pyramids. These structures are a testament to the grandeur of ancient Egypt, but could they also bear the signs of a great flood? Some researchers believe so. The Sphinx, carved from the bedrock of the Giza Plateau, exhibits a degree of erosion that some geologists argue is consistent with water damage. This is a particularly curious phenomenon given that the Sphinx is located in one of the driest places on Earth. Where could such extensive water damage have come from? This has led to the controversial Sphinx water erosion hypothesis. According to this theory, proposed by individuals like geologist Robert Schoch and author John Anthony West, the erosion on the Sphinx indicates that it was subjected to a prolonged period of heavy rainfall. But there's a twist. The last time Egypt experienced the level of rainfall capable of causing such erosion was at the end of the last ice age around 10,000 BCE, long before the civilization we know as ancient Egypt even began. This theory suggests that the Sphinx, and possibly even the pyramids, were already standing by the time the first pharaohs took the throne, and the ancient Egyptians merely rediscovered and repurposed these ancient structures. Furthermore, some believe that the pyramids show signs of being submerged underwater at some point, as evident from the presence of fossil shells and petrified wood in and around the pyramids. Again, these are just theories, but they spark a fascinating discussion and provide a fresh perspective on the origins of these mysterious structures. It's a fascinating speculation. Could there be more hidden beneath the vast sands of Egypt, swept under by the relentless waves of a catastrophic flood? Let's explore. Some researchers propose that the uniform layer of silt found across large parts of Egypt could be evidence of a massive flooding event. This layer of silt, often several meters deep, could have resulted from gigantic waves that would have moved vast amounts of sand and silt, potentially burying existing structures. Support for this theory can be found in the studies of sedimentary deposits in the Nile Valley. These deposits indicate instances of rapid, short-term increases in the rate of sedimentation, suggestive of a large-scale flooding event. Such an event would have drastically altered the landscape, burying existing structures under meters of sand and sediment. The evidence of tsunami-like events in the Mediterranean basin in the past adds further weight to this theory. Some of these tsunamis could have inundated large parts of Egypt's coast, carrying with them sand from the seabed and depositing it far inland. The idea that there could be more pyramids and other structures hidden under Egypt's sands is indeed thought-inducing. Several buried structures have already been discovered in recent years using ground-penetrating radar and other technologies. The potential that there are more secrets to unearth deepens the intrigue of this ancient land. The possibility of a massive flood event having contributed to the reshaping of the landscape opens up new avenues of research and exploration. Egypt, a cradle of human civilization, continues to reveal its past, piece by piece, challenging our understanding of history. We've all heard of the biblical story of Noah's Ark, but the flood narrative isn't unique to Judeo-Christian tradition. From ancient Sumerian tales to Greek mythology to Hindu scriptures, stories of great floods wiping out civilizations and being survived by a handful of individuals are almost universal. So let's plunge into these flood myths and look for evidence. The oldest known flood myth is the Epic of Gilgamesh, originating from ancient Sumer, in which the gods send a flood to wipe out humanity. But one man, Utnapishtim, is warned in advance and builds a great boat to survive. Sound familiar? In Greek mythology, we have the story of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who survive a great deluge sent by Zeus by building a chest. After the flood, they repopulate the earth by throwing stones over their shoulders, which transform into people. The Hindu tradition speaks of a great flood in the story of Manu, the progenitor of mankind. Warned of the impending deluge by a fish, an avatar of the god Vishnu, Manu builds a boat and rescues himself along with the seeds of life to start humanity anew after the floodwaters recede. These myths, scattered across different continents and cultures, all bear striking resemblances to each other, despite being thousands of years old. Could they be retelling the same event? Some researchers believe these myths might be distant, cultural memories of real events, perhaps the flooding at the end of the last ice age when sea levels rose dramatically. Several archaeological sites seem to support this theory. The ancient city of Dwarka, described in Hindu scriptures, was discovered underwater off the coast of modern-day India. Some claim that its submersion aligns with the timeline of the flood described in the story of Manu. In the Mediterranean, evidence of prehistoric settlements was found submerged near the coasts of Greece and Turkey. Were these thriving communities that were swallowed by the sea at the end of the Ice Age? While we need more archaeological and geological evidence to validate these theories, the parallels in these flood myths and their potential connections to submerged archaeological sites make us wonder, could these myths be echoes from a time when sea levels rose, engulfing coastal communities and reshaping our world? The very notion is like a riddle waiting to be solved, a story waiting to be told hidden beneath the waves of our ancient past. Contrary to what we've come to accept about the parched Sahara Desert, the time-worn structures of ancient Egypt tell a different story, an earth-shattering tale that speaks of a time when this arid landscape was a verdant paradise. Let's delve into it. Some researchers believe that the visible water erosion on the Sphinx and the pyramids could indicate that these structures were built during or before a wetter period in Egypt's history. The theory hinges on the existence of unmistakable signs of water erosion, particularly on the Great Sphinx. These erosion patterns do not match the patterns seen on structures known to be built in the dry climate of the last few thousand years. Water erosion on the Sphinx and the pyramids is more consistent with the erosion caused by heavy rainfall than by windsand erosion. Rainfall of such a magnitude hasn't been seen in the region for many thousands of years, predating the conventional timeline of the Sphinx and the pyramids. This theory has led some to speculate that the Sphinx and the pyramids were constructed during the last humid period in the Sahara, known as the African Humid Period, which ended around 5000 BC. That's several millennia before the accepted timeline for the construction of these monuments. If the water erosion theory is correct, it could radically change our understanding of Egypt's history. A lush, green Egypt, with rivers and forests where we now find sand, dramatically changes the backdrop against which we picture these ancient civilizations. It also paints a vivid picture of how drastically our planet's climate can change over long periods. Ancient Egypt's pyramids continue to draw us in with their grandeur and their complex symbolism. Yet the pyramids might not be the sole achievement of the ancient Egyptians we know today. In fact, some theories suggest that they were built by an even older, pre-dynastic civilization, and the Egyptians merely moved in after a catastrophic flood. Egyptology traditionally holds that the pyramids were built around 2600 BCE, primarily as tombs for pharaohs. Yet, some theorists argue that there is evidence to suggest that the pyramids, specifically the Great Pyramid of Giza, were built by a technologically advanced civilization that predates the Egyptians. Architectural elements, such as the precise alignment of the pyramids to true north, their sophisticated understanding of mathematics and geometry, and the construction technique used in building these massive structures, all seem to suggest a level of knowledge that was quite advanced for the time. The Sphinx also adds to this theory. Geological studies on the erosion patterns of the Sphinx suggest that it might have been exposed to thousands of years of rainfall, yet Egypt's arid climate hasn't seen such rain for at least 8,000 years. This has led some to propose that the Sphinx was built by an older civilization that existed during a more temperate climate. The theory of a pre-existing civilization becomes even more intriguing when we consider the flood myths that permeate cultures around the world, including that of the ancient Egyptians. Could it be that the pyramids were built by an advanced civilization that was wiped out by a global flood event, only for the structures to be later adopted by the surviving Egyptians? Before we bid adieu, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've explored. If our understanding of history could be so significantly altered by water erosion marks on the Sphinx and the pyramids, or by cities hidden beneath the sea, think of the countless other secrets waiting to be unearthed. What we consider fact today may just be the stepping stone to a more profound truth hidden beneath layers of sand, water, and time. So keep asking, keep exploring, and remember, the past is a puzzle, a grand, sprawling jigsaw that we are only beginning to assemble. And, as always, thanks for watching.